Today we talked about actually Mark chapter 3. We were talking about like this line that I think we can easily kind of skip over. Jesus has these, I call them gaspy moments, not gassy, gaspy moments, where he says something that's very, it just everybody in the room is like, I can't believe he just said that, you know. And one of those statements, and I don't think people realize this, is out of Mark chapter 3. And I'll just kind of summarize what happens. Jesus is out and he's doing a ton of different ministry, surrounded by hundreds, thousands of people. And his family sees that he hasn't eaten. He's probably not taking care of himself in that way. And so they're like, hey, we need to take charge of Jesus. And so they go and they say, hey, let Jesus know his family is outside. And Jesus' response is, well, who are my mother and brothers anyway? And then he says, anybody who hears these words of mine and does them is my mother and my brothers, right along those lines, right? But what was interesting about the culture of the time is they don't do individual stuff. I mean, they do individual stuff, but their identities come from the groups that they're a part of. So, and it was based off of basically three things. Number one, it was based off of gender. You were born a male or a female, and females did certain things and males did other things. I'm not saying that I agree with males and females doing certain things, I'm not saying that at all. But their culture, females did certain things. They worked in the house. They worked with the children. The men didn't even usually see or hang out with their boy children until they were 13 years old and when they were learning a trade.
Kind of like Amish people.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. In fact, the husbands and wives lived in separate houses. Many times, yeah. So gender. The other thing was a race. The Jewish race, they, what part of that, and then finally social status, right? So these were the big parts of their groups, but a big part of that was the race part of it, and the social part of it was also the family. And if you were too much of an individual, you were considered like an outcast, a rebel. It was dishonorable. It wasn't good. And so Jesus' family is outside, and so when they say, hey, you need to come and talk to us, it's kind of a big deal. He should run out there like right away because that's his family. That's the unit that he was born into. He was born a male, fully God, fully man, but he's born a male. He's born into this family. There are certain things, there's certain expectations that are on him, and he should be there. But instead, he calls everybody in the crowd, which is probably thousands, people which he doesn't even know, his mother and his brothers. That's gaspy. I believe people gasped at that. Oh my gosh, really? Because Jesus was hanging out with tax collectors. He was hanging out with prostitutes. He was hanging out with rich people. He was hanging out with all sorts of different people. And all those different social statuses that didn't normally mingle with one another, they were mingling with one another, And so Jesus calls all of them his mother and brothers. And then if you look in the Acts, after Peter preaches this incredible message to 3,000 people and all these people get saved, it says that they all come together and they meet daily for the word. It says that they break bread together. It says that they sell things and so that other people can profit from it. Thousands of people are doing this. They got it. And I think that sometimes in the church, we tend to not hang out with people or pour into people that are not coming to church on Sunday morning. We tend to not do it outside of church. And I think that that's really, really, really important. So today, that was what I was really encouraging people to do. Spend time, with people outside the church. I was talking about, too, because this morning I put a little video out through my Facebook about walking, about how when I was in the hospital in April, I lost my ability to walk for a while. It was a really, really scary time. And they wouldn't let me in the hospital do basic things, go to the bathroom, get my charger that's on the other side of the room. They said, use a walker, get a nurse. You can't do that by yourself. I needed somebody there to help me walk. And I think sometimes we think, okay, if somebody falls, I'm going to be there to pick them up. But what if we're there for people before they fall to make sure they don't fall?
Right.
And I'm not saying that we need to what do you call that? I know that people need to, at some point we need to kind of stand on our own and do our own thing, but I think that we need to support each other. And how there was this nurse who just came by and she said, I'm just roving all over the place, so if you need me, to come in, it's not a big deal. Don't be afraid to ask. And I said, I'm sick of sitting in this bed for at the fourth day. I'm like, I want to start getting stronger. can you let me walk with you? And she did. And every morning, afternoon, she would let me walk. It's 10 feet back to bed, 20 feet back to bed. And before you know it, and she had a hold of my back because they had a back thing on me because I kept falling over and they grabbed the back. And she was there for me. And then when I got home, Roger Westcott came over to the house because Amy wouldn't let me walk without my walker outside, and she said I could walk as long as Roger was with me, and he did, and we walked 20, 30 feet to the front of the house, almost fell over a couple times. He kind of grabbed me. He was there to walk with me, and I think that as Christians, we need to walk with each other. We need to support one another. So that was kind of what this morning was kind of all about, about supporting one another. Anything you were thinking while I was sharing all that?
I know I just talked a similar situation. I think I was talking about it on 4th and 10 this past Wednesday about witnessing to people without being a jerk.
Yeah.
Sometimes we come across as a jerk. We don't want to. We don't want to be know-it-alls. We want to be people that walk in love and if it's not open, then wait for another time. Sometimes we think it's the end of the world if we can't witness that time. If the door closes, they're not ready yet.
Yeah.
You don't want to push the gospel on people. You want to love them and be where they're at.
Yeah.
Or listen. And the major thing is just listening.
Yeah.
Showing that you care about them, not how much you know.
That was in the message.
Not how much you want to use wisdom.
Yeah.
Wisdom is just loving the people. Like actually, if they see that you actually care about them, they might listen back to you and understand you're not just trying to put your agenda on them or your way. And the guy that was talking about it was Dave Patch, who was used to be the voice of the Orange here, works for ESPN, and he worked all the time with Bill Walton, and Bill Walton was way out there, and he had to just love Bill Walton, and he couldn't put his agenda because Bill Walton was a completely different lifestyle, completely different than he was.
Yeah.
But he told how to use wisdom and love and respected Bill, and they built a friendship through that.
Wow, how good is that? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that just I think it happens just in regular relationships that just I really like to talk to people that want to listen, and it makes me feel good when people ask me how I'm doing, and then they really hear me, and it's not about how they're feeling. I love that a lot. So good stuff.